Hello everyone, and welcome back to another insightful episode of Mid-Synapse podcast series. I'm your host Hetvi Shah, and today we are diving into a topic that remains clouded with misconceptions, which is radiation therapy. And in this episode, which is titled "Radiation Therapy Unmasked: Busting Myths and Educating Oncologists," we aim to separate facts from fears and understand how radiation therapy can be optimally integrated into cancer care. And to guide us through this topic, we have with us Dr. Amrita Srivastava from Navi Mumbai in India, a highly respected radiation oncologist known for her evidence based approach and dedication to patient education. She brings immense experience in treating a wide range of cancers, including using advanced radiation techniques with focus on improving patient outcomes and enhancing interdisciplinary understanding. So, Doctor, welcome to the podcast, and it is such a pleasure to have you with me today.
Hi, Hetvi. Thank you for the invite. And, I'm very excited for this discussion. It's a topic very close to my heart. So, yes, hopefully we have a very engaging conversation. Yes.
Sure, definitely, Doctor. So, to begin with and set the tone, let's just start with the basics. So, what are some of the most common misconceptions you encounter from referring oncologists regarding radiation therapy?
So, most importantly, one of the few things first thing that comes to my mind is many people feel that radiation is just used for, like a last resort or something like palliative procedure, when, there is some pain or there is something, then that's only then been used, but which is not the case. Radiation is used in almost all cancer cases at almost all stages, be it stage 1 or be it stage 4. And it is used in curative intent, which is, when you're having something in the head and neck or breast or cervix, prostate, even lung cancer, you can use it in curative intent. Then along with surgery, you have done the surgery and then so that the disease doesn't come back, especially in head and neck and breast, is when we give it post-surgery, which is called as adjuvant therapy. And then there are some situations wherein we are doing it to prime them up for surgery, which is called as neoadjuvant therapy, especially in cases like rectum or, situations, sarcomas, like the bone, where we give it before the surgery. So it's used at all stages in curative intent, and of course, palliative is always there.
I think that is such a truly eye-opening answer, I would say. So now, Doctor, many patients actually fear radiation due to perceived side effects. So how can actually oncologists better consult them to overcome these fears? Because it's really necessary.
Yes. So my mantra is information reduces anxiety. Okay, that is very important. So as there is a lack of understanding when it comes to other oncologists as to when to send the patient, then from patient point of view is that fear that sets in, because you don't see it, what's happening. So there, and most of the side effects, most of the fear that people have is from the technology that were used like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, things like that. So us time pe, especially when we're using cobalt and everything, then log have chehra jal gaya, things like that. But that does not happen at all these days. That does not happen. There's also that, by giving your the other surrounding structures, the surrounding organs, important organs are getting destroyed, or it may somewhere get increased or something. It is not the case. As a radiation oncologist, I'm actually working with sub-millimeter precision, and my whole point is to safeguard the surrounding structures. We do it so focused that only the area that I want to give radiation receives the dose. Okay. So, and especially with techniques like image-guided radiotherapy, arc therapy, IMRT, there we have come up with so many new techniques that it is one of the most safe, I would say, treatments amongst all three techniques is what I would say. Yes. And of course, speaking to the patient is very most important to see technique. I can, we all know that, but speaking to the patient, listening patiently to them, understanding their fears, and then responding to that accordingly, giving them information so that they can take an informed decision is what is important in this situation to reduce their anxiety.
Absolutely. I think clear communication plays a very skilled role.
Yes.
And actually spreading the right kind of awareness is also really, really important.
True.
So, Dr. Now there is often confusion between external beam radiation and brachytherapy. So, could you clarify the key differences and indications for each?
So there is external beam radiotherapy, EBRT, and then there is brachytherapy, which is also called the internal beam radiotherapy. External is usually, in most scenarios, it is given via a machine called linear accelerator, wherein the radiations are coming from the machine. Patient is lying on the couch, and the radiation and the machine rotates, or you have OC gantry where ring gantry where it's coming, the rays are coming. Then there is something called as brachytherapy, wherein we are inserting certain devices inside the patient, which uses, and the radiation are in the form of radiation like a rice grain, and we're inserting that pellet, and from there, so internally the radiation is coming. So these are used with cervical cancer, which is India is the capital, right? So cervical cancer, brachytherapy is the most common use. Then we have used in head and neck, esophagus, then sarcomas. There are many other different breast, partial breast radiation. So that is a brachytherapy. But most commonly, external is used for the.
Yeah, I think. Thank you for actually simplifying so well for our listeners and even for me. So now, some clinicians believe that radiation therapy is only palliative in advanced cancers. Also, you mentioned in the beginning. So, what is your take on its curative potential in various malignancies?
Mostly, so if we start with, for example, a larynx cancer, the voice box cancer, okay? In early stages, you only need radiation. You don't need anything else along. Or, stage 3 and beyond, again, base of tongue, something in the throat, you need radiation with small quantities of chemotherapy. These are the only techniques that are used to completely cure the disease. We have reached almost 93-98% curative statistics with that. Same comes for even prostate, cervix. There is no need of any other treatment other than radiation. And of course, the surgery, chemo, radiation, they all go hand in hand. In fact, now with stereotactic radiation, which is, that basically it's an ablative therapy. You're blasting it with a very focused, very small place where you're blasting it with radiation. This is used for even stage 4 cancer. There is something called as oligometastatic, wherein the number of sites of metastasis in the body is less than 5. Okay, so I can blast those using radiation, and then they have something called an abscopal effect also, which reduces the tumor cells in the rest of the body as well. Okay, so we have with stereotactic radiation, we have reached that kind of technique, we've reached that kind of level. So palliation is like, I think, hardly 5% or probably 10% of what we do. Rest of it is curative treatment, even for stage 4, that we are aiming for. So, and these are not modern techniques. These are not something future may, this is the scenario, that this is what is happening today. Today we are able to do all of this, and years and years of research has already gone into it. We have evidence-based medicine that tells us that this stage requires this stage requires this. So definitely it's not just palliative.
Yeah, I think actually that highlights also such a powerful perspective, which goes that beyond palliative also.
Yes.
So, Dr., are there any myths around radiation toxicity to surrounding organs that you would like to address for our oncology audience? I think this is the most asked question.
Yes. See, for example, when a female is undergoing breast radiation for her breast cancer, okay? So there was long ago, there was a time when patients used to have these swelling in the arms that is called as lymphedema, which was a combination of all the nodes being removed during surgery, and then on add-on to it, we were giving radiation on it, so it was adding on. But this was 20 years ago. Today, I don't even see any probably grade 1 in some cases, not like grade 2, grade 3, we have not seen since so many years. Same for all the cases. There are some short-term side effects, acute side effects, like in even any treatment or anything that you're going on, which is easily manageable, but chronic side effects or long-term side effects or something that is beyond grade 3 or grade 4 is we are not seeing it when done right. When done right, we are not seeing it now. Okay, and because as I said, we are working with sub-millimeter precision, because I know in each slice what dose I am giving, how much dose I am giving to that particular disease, how much I have to save for the surrounding structures. So I think we have gone beyond. It is one of the safest, what I would easily say.
Yes, I think indeed, and I think dispelling such myths can actually greatly influence the treatment decisions also that oncologists usually do.
Yes, for sure.
So, doctor, finally, could you share a case where addressing this misconception significantly improved a patient's treatment outcome?
For sure. So there was an elderly gentleman, I would say somewhere 70-ish, suffering from prostate cancer. Okay, so there was a long discussion about what has to be done. Surgery has to be done, radiation has to be done, and because in India, it's not just the patient, it's the entire clan that fits in the
or their input.
Yes. So everyone had a lot of opinions and options available to them. But yeah, so in that case, if you can get away with something that is non-invasive, okay, and you hardly have any side effects of it, because prostate cancer, and there was a time where prostate cancer was happening the treatment was happening over 7 to 8 weeks. Now we are doing either in 4 weeks or even hypofractionated radiation, which happens over 1 week in 5 sessions, and you are done. You are cancer free. Okay, so things like that. So that is where so much evolution has happened in terms of radiation. So and plus you get away with minimal side effects. So in a case like that, exactly, your entire treatment is happening in 5 days. Minimal side effects. What more do you want? And you're getting cancer free, right? So, in situations like these is where having especially a radiation oncologist on your panel or in your tumor board, where you can have the multidisciplinary team take the decision. Yeah. That is it. Really helps.
Yeah, I think for such few years back, cancer was such a deadly disease, and now it has changed. And obviously, there's a lot of every patient has a lot of pressure from everywhere. Yeah. But then I think with the right treatment option, and as you mentioned, multidisciplinary team helps a lot to cure that.
With the right guidance, at the right time.
Yes.
Things can change drastically. See, for example, not to compare diseases, few years ago, a single heart attack, a single cardiac arrest would be it, right? But now situation is not like that. Touch wood, people are going beyond and beyond, which is with lifestyle changes and everything. It's the same with all our diseases. With so much of research, so much of technology, so right help at the right time is something that we should all encourage and create such kind of awareness that with channels like yourself, with that we're creating that awareness that we have resources, use it.
True, very right. It's like importance of knowledge and communication is really important. So, Doctor, as we wrap up this session, thank you so much for unmasking these myths and providing such a clarity on radiation therapy. So, thank you so much. It was such a great discussion with you today.
All pleasure from my end as well. And it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you. And I'm sure this conversation will empower many oncologists to counsel and manage their patients better.
Yes.
And remember, if you're a healthcare professional who is eager to delve deeper into medical topics or have questions, do not hesitate to join us on the Medicine Apps platform. Medicine Apps platform is not just a resource, it's a dynamic space where you can connect with your medical peers, participate in meaningful discussions, and contribute to the ongoing evolution of healthcare. So until next time, do be aware of rapidly spreading myths and misconceptions.